Good evening, you're watching News Mongolian Beyond. I'm your host, Tanner Gambatar. And for top stories, the inter-sectoral strategic plan for ensuring gender equality was introduced. The UN Working Group's latest report on arbitrary detention needs thorough attention. The Embassy of Japan celebrates Self-Defense Forces Commemoration Day, and for the news, stay tuned. In 2011, Mongolia approved the gender equality law, which ensured the legal basis to be reflected in all sectors. Then the inter-sectoral strategic plan to achieve gender equality in the next 10-year period, approved by the National Committee on Gender Equality, headed by the Prime Minister, was introduced this week.
Over the past 10 years, 2 national programs and 1 strategic plan to support the implementation of this law have been successfully implemented in 12 sectors in the 21 provinces and 9 districts. The newly adopted strategic plan includes several issues that were previously not covered.
This includes the activity of the cultural sector, IT information technology, the environment, climate change, disaster risk reduction, and what is happening after the COVID-19 pandemic, the situation of rural girls and women. All these new issues that are emerging internationally have been included in the strategic plan.
However, it is said that coordination and cooperation are important for the implementation of this newly approved law and policy program in a gender-sensitive manner for strengthening the practical experience of evaluating its effectiveness from the perspective of gender equality.
Economic Empowerment Project, which was launched in 2020 with the support from the Government of Canada through Global Affairs Canada, was proud to support the development of the strategic plan alongside with NCGE. And I think in terms of what we can expect with results after implementation of the plan, I think we have very clear indicators included in the strategic plan itself, and with the leadership of NCGE, I think we can expect a lot of progress will be made. In terms of where the Asia Foundation is particularly interested in is related to Goal 2, which is supporting equal opportunities and participation in the economy.
When we talk about gender, we tend to see it as a women's issue who want to lead. In fact, a good solution can be achieved by changing the understanding of people working at the management level in terms of how the decisions affect both women and men equally, and how it provides equal opportunities in their lives and activities. So people working in the management level should change their perception.
The participants emphasized that the strategic plan is aimed at strengthening civil society's participation and cooperation, reaching all administrative units in local areas, and developing public services in a gender-sensitive manner.
98.3% of detention in Mongolia in 2021 were made without any court's decision. In addition, cases of evaluating performance of investigators and prosecutors by the quantity of the cases they worked on were mentioned in the report.
During the COVID-19 pandemic, it was unethical to take advantage of this outbreak to limit the freedom of peaceful demonstration, association, and expressing their freedom of speech. That is why we are submitting the Minister of Justice and Home Affairs an inquiry whether he is agreeing with this report. I will put this in front of the members of parliament whether they agree with this conclusion or not. If this is not corrected immediately, this conclusion will be discussed at the 94th session of the UN Human Rights Council in September 2023.
The ambassador of Japan to Mongolia, Mr. Hiroyuki Kobayashi, hosted the reception to mark the Self-Defense Forces Day on Tuesday at the Embassy of Japan in Ulaanbaatar. The reception was attended by the Minister of Defense of Mongolia, Mr. Sakhanbayir, military officials, members of the diplomatic community, and other dignitaries from the public and private sectors. On November 1st, the Embassy of Japan organized a reception in order to celebrate the 68th anniversary of Japan's Self-Defense Forces. For this occasion, His Excellency Ambassador Hiroyuki Kobayashi and the embassy staff welcomed a great number of ambassadors and military attachés and personnel to the ambassador's residence. The guests were warmly welcomed at their arrival at the residence entrance and were accompanied to the mansion's main salon. There, His Excellency Ambassador Hiroyuki Kobayashi delivered a speech to celebrate Japan's Self-Defense Forces Day. Defense Attaché Mr. Iri Kyohei represented the Japan's Self-Defense Force at the embassy. On the occasion of the Japan Self-Defense Forces, our embassy invited relevant officials of Mongolia's Ministry of Defense, ambassadors and attachés residing in Mongolia, and graduates of the Self-Defense Forces schools from Mongolia to Japan to celebrate this day. This year we organized the Road to 2022 course in reference to the exchanges and cooperation in the defense sector of our two countries. This course was organized to improve road building skills. Also, the project to improve the capacity of the armed forces of Mongolia is being implemented at the Central Military Hospital of Mongolia. This is a project to teach on how to organize the hospital team to provide emergency aid in the event of a natural disaster. In the future, we will be happy if the doctors of the Central Military Hospital are able to improve their skills and contribute to the armed forces. Also, the Minister of Defense of Mongolia, Mr. Sakhanbayir, congratulated the people of Japan on the 68th anniversary of the Japan Self-Defense Forces Day from the people and government of Mongolia. Minister Sakhanbayir, while addressing the event, said Japan had always contributed towards the betterment of the people of Mongolia for many years. He expressed the hope that relations between Mongolia and Japan would further flourish in the coming years. Earlier this year, a joint military training session and practice named after Road 2022 between the Mongolian Armed Forces and the Japan Self-Defense Forces was held for the 12th time as part of the program increasing the capacity of the engineering sector of the Armed Forces of Mongolia under the agreement between the Ministries of Defense of the two countries. Japan Self-Defense Forces Day was originally celebrated when the Japan Defense Agency upgraded to the ministry in 2007 and the Japan Self-Defense Forces were established on July 1, 1954, but the date has been changed to November 1st as the Japan Self-Defense Forces are expected to respond to natural disasters such as frequent typhoons during the summer season in Japan. Thank you for staying with us. Now let's take a look at the currency exchange rates provided by Mongol Bank. Here's the international news from our partner agencies. Officials from the State Department on Tuesday said the United States is concerned about the threat picture regarding reports Iran could be preparing for an imminent attack on Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia has shared intelligence with American officials that suggest Iran could be preparing for an imminent attack on the kingdom, three U.S. officials confirmed on Tuesday.
The administration has hit Iran with sanctions for supplying drones to Russia for use in its war in Ukraine. White House National Security Council spokesman John Kirby on Tuesday reiterated that the administration remains concerned that Iran may also provide Russia with surface-to-surface missiles.
We are concerned that Russia may also seek to acquire advanced conventional weapons from Iran, such as surface-to-surface missiles that will almost certainly be used to support Russia's war against Ukraine. We've spoken before about our efforts using all appropriate means to expose, to deter, to confront Iran's provision of these munitions against the Ukrainian people. We will continue to vigorously enforce all U.S. sanctions on both the Russian and Iranian arms trade to make it harder for Iran to sell these weapons to Russia, to help the Ukrainians have what they need to defend against these threats, and we'll stand up with our partners throughout the Middle East and against the Iranian threat that many of them also face.
The heightened concerns about a potential attack on Saudi Arabia come at a moment when the U.S. is criticizing Tehran for its crackdown on widespread protests following the death of a young woman in Iranian security forces' custody, and as the Biden administration condemns Iran for sending hundreds of drones as well as technical support to Russia for use in its war in Ukraine. One of the officials who confirmed the intelligence sharing described it as a credible threat of an attack soon or within 48 hours. No U.S. embassy or consulates in the region have issued alerts or guidance to Americans in Saudi Arabia or elsewhere in the Middle East, based on the intelligence. The officials were not authorized to comment publicly and spoke on condition of the anonymity. The Wall Street Journal first reported on the Saudis sharing the intelligence early on Tuesday. The US and Saudis accused Iran in 2019 of being behind a major attack in eastern Saudi Arabia, which helped the oil-rich kingdom's production and caused energy prices to spike. The Iranians denied they were behind the attack. The Saudis have also been hit repeatedly in recent years by drones, missiles, and mortars launched by the Iran-backed Houthi rebels in Yemen, in retaliation for Saudi involvement in the civil war that began there in 2014. Saudi Arabia formed a coalition to battle the Houthis in 2015 and has been internationally criticized for its airstrikes, which have killed scores of civilians. In recent weeks, the Biden administration has imposed sanctions on Iranian officials for the brutal treatment of demonstrators after the death of 22-year-old Mahsa Amini in September while in the custody of Iranian security forces.
And they are most real.
It's almost 100 years since the tomb of King Tutankhamun was discovered in the Valley of the Kings. He has become the most famous ancient Egyptian pharaoh in the world thanks to the incredible condition of his final resting place and the grave goods found alongside his body.
The Golden Death Mask of a Boy King. King Tutankhamun was the young pharaoh whose ancient tomb and opulent artifacts have fascinated generations since they were first discovered. For many, King Tut is the ultimate symbol of ancient Egypt's glory. Tutankhamun ascended the throne at age 9, ruling until his death at age 18 or 19. His tomb was found by British Egyptologist Howard Carter in 1922.
This year, in 2022, we are celebrating, not only in Egypt, all over the world, with the discovery of Tutankhamun. 100 years. It's the centennial of discovering the tomb of the boy king Tutankhamun. He drove the entire world crazy because of the intact objects that they were found inside his own tomb.
The discovery of the 3,000-year-old tomb was a watershed moment in archaeology. Tutankhamun's outermost coffin is made from wood and gilded with gold. It was found alongside thousands of other treasures undisturbed by grave robbers.
By those wonderful craftsmen of old.
The tomb of Tutankhamun was the only tomb was discovered almost intact in the Valley of the Kings. It has such a nice, long story. When Carter discovered the tomb in November 4th, 1922, he found 5,398 pieces. Most of them, they were gold. The tomb itself, it's a very modest tomb. It's a very small tomb comparing with the rest of the tombs in the Valley of the Kings.
Pressing on with its search for the tombs of the fair.
Mystery has surrounded Tutankhamun since his discovery, from a supposed curse on his tomb to uncertainty around how he died. But in 2005, researchers took CT scans of his body and were able to shed some light on that particular puzzle.
Who's thought to have lived some...
After a couple of thousand pictures were taken to the mummy of Tutankhamun, we could announce that Tutankhamun, he died because of this accident and chariot and the lift wheel and stuff like this, and he died in the second day of this accident. Tutankhamun, he had a severe malaria. Tutankhamun, he had very weak bones. That explains why did we find 120 canes inside his own tomb.
Tutankhamun and his grave goods will eventually go on show together at the new Grand Egyptian Museum in Giza when it opens.
Now let's take a look at our regular feature on sports. 6 months after the shirt worn by Diego Maradona during the notorious 1986 World Cup quarterfinal was sold for €7.1 million, the football used during the same match has been put up for auction by Graham Butt Auctions Limited and is expected to fetch between 2.5 and 3 million British pounds as part of a collection of World Cup memorabilia being offered for sale over the next 2 weeks. Former England midfielder Peter Reid says Diego Maradona was a cheat, but a clever cheat, after coming face-to-face with the ball the Argentine great famously handballed in the 1989 World Cup quarter-final for the first time in 36 years.
Why it's iconic, he's cheated, but the second one is a genius. So you've got two, top of the scale there, genius, lower, a cheat, and that's what makes it. And do I blame them for celebrating? Listen, the two countries had difficulties, let's just say, so you can understand what they're about. Was I happy? I was devastated at the time. Still dream about it now because I can't get there. So something in there is giving you memories. But it's a long time ago, and you know, Diego Maradona's gone now, but he was a genius.
Referee Albin Nasir kept the ball after the match and has stored it in a cupboard in his home in Tunisia ever since. He is now putting it up for the action through Graham Reed Actioneers, with a portion of the proceeds to be donated to charity. The ball is expected to fetch 2 to 3 million pounds when it goes under the hammer, but for Reid and his former teammate Terry Butcher, neither have a desire to place a bid. Butcher was closer to the incident at the Azteca Stadium, but says even after watching the replay several times, he still doesn't think the handball was as blatant as others. He also checked with the man himself when they met at a match a month later in California, and says Maradona indicated he had headed the ball for the famous goal. Steve Nash is out as Brooklyn Nets coach after a disappointing start and more controversy surrounding Kyrie Irving. The Brooklyn Nets announced Tuesday that they parted ways with the Hall of Fame point guard Steve Nash a day after they beat Indiana to improve to 2-5. Nash made it to this season after Kevin Durant said he wanted him out of the summer, but not much longer. The Nets have been another mess, with bad play on the court and bad headlines of it.
I have a long history with Kevin, and I love the guy. Families have issues. We had a moment, and it's behind us. That's what happens. I mean, it's a common situation in the league. We all were hurting, seething to go through what we went through last year. Not being able to overcome all that adversity. Sometimes you lose perspective because you expect to win, but
the biggest again was created by Irving, who posted a link on an anti-Semitic work on his Twitter page last week, drawing criticism from Nets owner Joe Tsai. Nash led the Nets to the playoffs in both full seasons, his first as the NBA coach. Here's the weather forecast of world's major cities. Well, that's all for today, and thank you for staying with us. We'll see you tomorrow with more news and updates. Have a nice evening. Goodbye.